We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
Let me ask you this before we get into home inspections as it relates to a potential buyer. Last week we had conversations with someone who is, actually 2 weeks ago, Rick and I had a conversation with a real estate agent that loves pre-home inspections when it comes to listing a particular property. Tell us a little bit about what pre-home inspections entail and why are they valuable for a potential seller?
They're great for a seller that's especially been in a house for a while or an estate sale that they don't know the property. It gives them a chance to have an independent person come in and tell them, in that case, usually we're telling them just the negative things. We're not telling them the good things and all that. We're looking for signs of issues that could come up to be a stumbling block for them when they actually have their house on the market and have gone through the negotiation process. They don't want to have a home inspector then come in and find something that they had no clue about. It gives them a chance to either address it or disclose it and at least be prepared for those.
Yeah, just this week, I've gotten two people that have come to me saying, hey, we've got home inspection issues, and we're going after the seller for $7,000, $10,000 in reduction in purchase price. And you go through the list of what's actually wrong, and it totals probably $1,500, maybe $2,000. So for the sellers out there, having you come in and going through that and going, hey, yeah, just fix that. I mean, call this guy, fix that, do this, do that, do this. And they get it all done. When the home inspector comes in, he's not going to be, those buyers aren't going to be nickel and diming you because they want everything perfect.
Correct. We're going to go through the house as if we were looking at it for the buyer, and I'll point out things to them. If they have a stain on their ceiling from a tub overflowing 7 years ago, we'll point out that they should paint it. Why advertise issues? If they can do some basic maintenance around the house to bring it up to make it even look like, even if they haven't maintained their house, if they can make it look like it has been maintained, it kind of helps them.
It's called lipstick on a pig, isn't that?
To an extent, yes.
Well, no, I mean, I want to make sure that I make this abundantly clear. I mean, there is buyer beware, but as far as sellers are concerned, if there is an issue, an active issue that they're aware of, you cannot conceal that. You have the obligation of making the buyer aware of a particular issue. I think what you're talking about
don't advertise non-issues.
Right, exactly. If it's a non-issue, and I think what you're talking about is that particular leak that may have stained the ceiling, but that leak was already addressed.
Correct.
But the stain is still there. I think someone looking at that stain says you automatically have water issues where there are no water issues. And so addressing something that may lead to the impression of something that may be wrong, I think that's what you're talking
Correct,
about.
because if I see a stain, I'm going to inquire further.
Now, your journey has revealed some interesting challenges, some interesting deficiencies that you have learned to manage yourselves, which I think that is a really compelling story in my opinion. But why multifamilies? Because I mean, I represent a number of different investors, and I know that some of their angle is more on big buildings, larger buildings, performing buildings. Why go with the multifamily route?
Well, it was largely a function of how we got into the business by buying non-performing mortgages.
Sure.
So that's why we got started with single family and then to 2 and 3 family. And the multifamily, the 1 to 4 family has really become an asset class, an institutional asset class after the last housing bust.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we as we put this portfolio together, we were hiring third-party property managers to manage the portfolio, and we were ending up with all of the problems that everybody who rents out properties ends up with. We had high delinquency rates, and we had high vacancy rates, and our maintenance costs were out of hand. So we ended up bringing the property management in-house. And we brought our vacancy rates from 8% down to 1.5%. And we brought our delinquency rate down from 20% to 1%.
Jeez.
And our renewal rates are 70%. And this last year, we actually had an increase in rents of 6.9%. So we really got the portfolio performing well, which is why we think now is the right time to put it on the market.
Sure, but also these multifamilies, I mean, a good portion of these multifamilies that you acquired required TLC. So you've stabilized this particular portfolio by actually improving the assets themselves. Is that not correct?
One of the criteria in buying the properties was to buy properties that needed work. Mm-hmm. So all of them needed some level of TLC. This gave us an opportunity generally to redo bathrooms, redo kitchens, and to do them in a way that was uniform across the portfolio.
Gotcha.
So if you go into any of the Scudder Bay properties, you'll see that all the kitchens look alike, all the bathrooms look alike, all the colors are the same, the carpets are the same. So when we have to do maintenance or repair, we have the correct paint, we have the correct fixtures, and so forth.
Smart.
And you mentioned that in the process of acquiring these properties, you were faced with a challenge, and it's really the lead paint challenge. I want to turn the conversation over to Victor. Victor, how did this come about? What were some of the challenges that you faced with, and how did you address those?
Yeah, as we were compiling the portfolio, we realized that the letters we sent into our units weren't doing a good job. They were not on time. They didn't do good quality work, and it hurt our bottom line. So one of the reasons why we started this Northeast remediation business was because we needed someone that was very responsible. And secondly, it simply seemed to be the right thing to do to offer a solution for homeowners to have a dedicated service to de-lead their homes.
I'll share a personal story that happened to my wife and I a week and a half ago during that deep freeze. Tuesday morning, we wake up having a cup of coffee, and I say, what in the world is going on in our kitchen? And there was water coming down the side of the wall, through the light fixture, onto the kitchen table, down on the floor, and then in the living room, there was water that was coming down and going underneath the wood floor. Now, it's funny because we've covered this subject matter before. You've gone through this process before. But here's what I will tell the listeners. As a homeowner that's faced with this type of distress, I think I could personally tell you that it was deer in the headlights for me. And the first question that we asked was, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Who do we call? What's the first step? What's the right step? What's the proper way of handling this? And so my first step was to you, Tony. And I kept calling. You know, I think you were on vacation, and I apologize to have called you during vacation time. But I tell you, my hat's off to you. You responded immediately, and you responded accordingly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we're on vacation, but you're never really away.
That's right. All these stupid cell phones, right?
So talking about the winter season, some of the issues that the homeowners are dealt with, you actually wrote an article, and we wanted to talk about this article that you wrote, and it's really talking about setting expectations, and perhaps people don't have the right expectations when they're dealing with situations like that. I know I didn't. Right. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think that any kind of insurance claim situation, the two biggest ones for most anybody is going to be water, large water losses, like with a pipe break or a sprinkler, times in condominium units or multifamilies that have sprinklers. That usually the cold air is coming in through the eave and the roof line or somewhere
right
along there. So naturally, the water source comes from the top of the building and then soaks everybody down. Or a fire because of the smoke. You could have a small kitchen fire, but the smoke damage could be entirely through your house. So when you have a larger loss like that, the expectation of the process, like what you dealt with, is naturally the first person you call is your insurance agent. They'll get a hold of the carrier, file a claim, and now they'll assign an adjuster. But you can imagine when there's, like last year, there was millions of ice dams, or with a week-long deep freeze, there are a lot of pipe bursts and fires.
Sure.
The adjusters get busy. So they'll be responsive, but it might not be the next day, or probably won't be the next day. You as a building owner, property owner, have a responsibility to mitigate the damage as much as possible. Meaning you can't just sit there and watch the water pour out of your ceiling and damage your hardwood floor. Put a bucket under it. You have to do something. You can't just sit there and do nothing, because that could affect you back the other way with the insurance company. So now you've dealt with it. In many cases, your agent or whatnot, they can guide you to a remediation company, someone that's going to take care of the water or whatnot to help you to mitigate that damage. My company's we're not emergency response people. We come in after the fact. We put you back together.
Right.
Now,
But
sometimes
your
I help
company
those guys
would-
with the demolition work, but
Right, but your company would put that particular building manager or homeowner in touch with an emergency response
if they
company.
need that, yeah, we have the resources to get it all done. We can serve as the project captain, so to speak, and
Yeah.
put all the players in place, and we have the team, like you talked about teams before.